This is going to be a quick video about graphing equations that are given in slope-intercept form. So to start off, just a quick recap, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. There are two important numbers that get plugged into this form when we write an equation in slope-intercept form. So those two numbers are the slope and the y-intercept. So when we're given a graph, our job is to extract those numbers, that key information, out of the graph so that we can use it to write the equation in this form. So let's take a look at this graph and see if we can figure out the slope and the y-intercept. So you may remember that on a graph with a line, the slope determines how tilty the line is. It determines how steep it is or how maybe non-steep, how shallow the angle is. So we can find the slope by finding any 2 points on the line and counting our rise and our run. So let's just pick this lower pink point right here, and we'll count up 1, 2, and that's a rise of 2. And then from here, we'll count straight to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that gives us a run of 4. And do keep in mind that this graph is angling down, which means that it has a negative slope. So because we counted to the left, that means that this 4 should really be a negative 4. We counted up 2, that's positive, and then left 4, that's a negative. So when we put it all together, slope is rise over run. So we have 2 over negative 4, giving us a total slope, or a simplified slope, of negative 1/2. All right, so this is a key piece of information that we're going to plug into the form when we write our equation of the line. But before we can do that, we also need to find the y-intercept. Now, the y-intercept doesn't tell you how much the line slants. It tells you how high or low that line is placed on the graph. So because this line is lower than the origin, that means that it has a y-intercept that's negative. So we want to know how far down from the origin did this line shift. So we can do that by just starting at the origin and counting straight down until we hit the line that we're trying to write the equation for. So we're going to start here and count down 1, 2, 3. And at 3, or at negative 3, we have hit that blue line. So this would be our y-intercept. So we would say that is b equals negative 3. Now you can also think of this as the point where the y-axis intersects with that line. That's also definitely an important part of the definition of the y-intercept. So now let's bring it all together. We have our y-intercept, we have our slope. So now all we need to do is plug them into the form. So we have y equals, and then for our m, we have negative 1/2. Don't forget about the x. We always want to have the x and the y in our equation. And then finally, we have minus 3 from that y-intercept. So y equals negative 1/2 x minus 3 is the equation of this line. Let's move on to our next problem. So we just saw an example of figuring out the equation when we're given a graph. Now, how do we do the reverse? What if we're given the equation and we have to create the graph? So there's really a two-step process for graphing any line when it's given in slope-intercept form. The first thing you want to do is graph the y-intercept. So number 1, there we go, plot or graph the y-intercept. So in this case, our y-intercept is 5. So example, b equals 5. So what we're going to do is, like we said, the y-intercept tells us how far above or below the center of the graph we are. So because it's positive, that means we're going to go up. So we're going to start at the center and go straight up 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to make a point there. Now, we know that that point is on the line because the line crosses over the y-axis at that point. So that's going to be our anchor for where all of the other points on the line come from. And that brings us to step number 2. Count, rise, over run, using the slope to plot additional points. Okay, so here's what I mean. In this case, in our example, our slope is, let's look back, -4/3. So we're going to start at that anchor point, the y-intercept, and from here we're going to count up and over or down and over based on this slope. So because it's a negative slope, that means we're going to go down and over to the right. So let's go down 1, 2, 3, 4. That was our rise, but we're going down. And then over 3. So that's our run. 1, 2, 3. So once I've gone down 4 and over 3, I'm going to stop and make a point. And then and now this new point is my new anchor, and I'm going to go through that process again. From that new anchor point, go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 1, 2, 3, and make a new point, and then we do it all over again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, make a point. Now, I'm going down, which is a negative direction, and right, which is a positive direction. Down and right, right, down and right. Now, I could also go up, which is positive, and then left, which is also negative. So I just want to show you, you can go in both directions. And so if we have a negative slope, it just has to be that one of those directions is positive and the other one is negative. So if I go up, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go to the left, it's backwards on the video, 1, 2, 3, you can see how the pattern of those dots continues. So this would be step 3, which would be to connect the dots. That is, draw the line. Okay, so I'll do it over in black again. But there you go. So again, you're always, always, always starting with that y-intercept. There's really no other way to do it unless you just guess some random point that could be on the line. So start with that y-intercept, that's very key. And then from there, use your slope to count down and over or up and over, depending on if the slope is positive or negative. And that allows you to plot more and more points along the line and keep them all spaced out evenly the way that slope is supposed to do. So that's it for drawing and graphing lines when you're given slope-intercept form.